Okay, good morning, everyone. It is an honor and a pleasure to introduce Dr. Nallely Garza Rodríguez, a distinguished academic and educator from Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León. Dr. Garza Rodríguez holds a bachelor's degree in applied linguistics for teaching and a master's degree in education sciences from the School of Philosophy and Letters at Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León, where she was recognized in 2013 with the prestigious award for the best master's thesis in education. A dedicated educator and scholar, she has taught English as a foreign language and academic courses at multiple levels. Her commitment to excellence extends beyond the classroom. She has shared her expertise as a speaker at both national and international conferences, and as an author and reviewer for academic journals focused on English language teaching and educational research. In December 2020, Dr. Garza Rodríguez completed her doctorate in bilingual education at Texas A&M University, Kingsville. She currently serves as a full-time professor and academic coordinator in the bachelor's degree program in applied linguistics for teaching and translation of English at Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León. From 2022 to 2024, she also led the Nuevo León chapter of Mextesol as its president, contributing significantly to the professional development of English teachers in the region. Most recently, she has been selected as a researcher candidate in Mexico's prestigious National Researchers System, Sistema Nacional de Investigadores. Dr. Garza Rodríguez research interests include teacher training, teacher attrition, professional identity, and the evaluation of teacher preparation programs, especially within the context of English as a foreign language. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Nallely Garza Rodríguez. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you. It's an honor for me to be here. Okay, I want to start sharing. Let me see if it works.
Good morning.
Okay. Can we see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you very much, Edgar, Dr. Cristina Simansi. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor for me to be here. I have told Edgar that I have gone to Universidad de Guanajuato 2 or 3 times, and I'm very glad that I'm participating today to present some of my research results and findings from my doctoral and my practice research. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here so very early in the morning on Saturday. So, well, today I'm going to share with you some of the insights of what started as my doctoral dissertation, and now I have taken that my teaching practice. So today I'm going to show you what I have done regarding professional identity and in pre-service English language teaching and using narrative pedagogy, which is one of my favorite methods. So First of all, because I love narratives and I love sharing stories, I want to share a story to you today. So, as Edgar mentioned, one of my research interest areas is teacher attrition. So, this is a story. Why this tenured teacher is leaving the classroom for good. This story is taken from a website, Board Teachers, which I really love. And it says in this way: when I decided to become a teacher, I was told a lot of things. I was told that you shouldn't get into teaching for the money, that teaching is stressful and at times mind numbing. I was told it was a lot of work and that you will be working nights and weekends without pay or recognition. I was told that all that vacation time you think you will get doesn't really exist. At the time, I thought they were embellishing or maybe just trying to dissuade me from getting into the family business. Maybe they were just wishing me for more than what they had. Because there's no way teaching could be as bad as they were making out to be. The good news is I was right. I turned out to be not as bad as they say it was. The bad news, it was worse, and that's why I'm leaving. So, I am sorry, it's because I don't see you and I want to see you here. Am I sharing still the screen? Yes, there.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so what do you think about this story? I'd like to have um my talks interactive. Is there someone who would like to participate? What do you think about this story? Do you feel related to it? Probably when you decided to become an English teacher, you were told all of these things or not? I want to stop sharing a little bit. Did you relate to this story, Brisa?
Yes, I feel identified. Right now, I have been teaching for 3 years, and yes, I feel identified because I was told that it was difficult, that we don't earn like a lot of money. And right now, I have realized that yes, it is worse than they told me, but not because of the money, because we have like a lot of challenges to face. And
Mhm.
especially now I have like analyzed that I am better at teaching adults than teaching children. That this is something like very important because for me, teaching children is like something very, very, very stressful and difficult. So yes, I have realized that as teachers, we have to face a lot of difficult things in classroom, especially for me when teaching children.
Okay. One more person. Do you feel related to this story or not?
Ah,
Yes. Mariana?
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenos días a todos. Sí, yo también me siento, oh, sorry. I also feel like feel a little bit like very close to the story. And as Brisa says, yeah, it is very difficult. We face a lot of challenge, and challenge sometimes is out of our control, out of our um well, yeah, out of our control mostly. And yeah, for me was also like I share the same experience as Brisa. Teaching children for me was very, very difficult. I rather like change to junior high or high school. For me, that was better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so well, we have this story, and this is one probably of something that we have all experienced in our, process of becoming an English teacher. When I decided to become an English teacher, many people told me like, "Why are you studying that? Do you really need to have a degree to become an English teacher? Isn't just knowing the language enough?" So when I started my doctoral degree, I wanted to study why my students decided to become English teachers and how they transform themselves during the teacher education program, and how their identity, their professional identity transformed and constructed in order to see who had this potential of remaining in the profession longer than others, probably. This is one of my ideas that I'm still studying. So nowadays, teacher education programs have tried to introduce new pedagogies because it has been studied that teacher education and pre-service teachers are not well prepared enough, because there are many teacher education programs that still use very conventional methods in which just the transmission of knowledge is in a very traditional way. So basically, English teacher education programs only focus on developing knowledge and skills. But there's a piece that is missing, and that is this reflection on how personal or professional identity develops through teacher education programs. So in this sense, I'm presenting the narrative pedagogy as a way of reflecting and examining the narratives of pre-service teachers' lives in this process of learning to teach, in order for us to create spaces that help them to construct their identity, but most importantly, to sustain them into teaching, which means that I am worried that some of our pre-service teachers finish their BA program, but when they finish and they start working and face all of these challenges that Prisa and Mariana were mentioning, they quit. And I believe that they quit because there was not enough space in the program to discuss these issues. And so when they enter into the working field, they might feel overwhelmed and not ready to face all of these problems. So what happens with teacher education programs is that we have too much theory. We have a lot of content subjects in which we have to see second language acquisition theories, methodologies, planning, I don't know, linguistic theories, and everything that is related to teaching. But sometimes the program, we do not land that information into the real world, and how can that be applied in the classroom teaching. Also, there is a need for new pedagogies that is not just the classical and traditional pedagogies in which just the teacher is a transmitter of information and the students, they just receive the information. So we need to prepare pre-service teachers for these challenges that today's classroom has. The conventional teaching does not equip them, the students, with the necessary knowledge and skills that they need for these challenges. And there are very few opportunities for reflection. This is because we prioritize content and knowledge acquisition rather than reflective practices. We care that the students actually know how to teach grammar, how to teach vocabulary, but we do not give them spaces to discuss what they feel, how they live their process of learning to teach. In this sense, the purpose of this study that I'm presenting you today is to explore pre-service teachers' perceptions of the implementation of narrative pedagogy in their teacher education program and identify the impact this narrative pedagogy has on their professional identity development. And the question is, how do pre-service teachers describe their learning experience through the implementation of narrative pedagogy? And how can narrative pedagogy be implemented in teacher education to develop pre-service professional identity? So what is narrative pedagogy? Yesterday, if you attended Dr. Gary Barquisen talk, he was explaining us a little bit about the narrative and the case methods and how can we use stories for students to reflect on these dilemmas and everything. So from this area of the narrative pedagogy, narrative methodology, it comes the narrative pedagogy, which it's about teaching through stories, all right? And the main purpose of narrative pedagogy is to share stories about our teaching practice in this case, and responding to other stories that are shared by other students or other people or teachers. So when we use narrative pedagogy in our classes, we make our students reflect and examine what their stories are saying and how is the learning to teach process. According to some authors, when we do this, we make our students reflect on their professional identity and how they have evolved as teachers, and it will help them sustain in teaching later on. Okay. How can we implement narratives in teacher education? According to the Beer, the narrative pedagogy helps teachers or pre-service teachers to engage in dialogues, not only with the teacher, but also with other peers about relevant issues that are happening in, in their teaching practice or in the learning to teach process. And during these dialogues, they share the stories and they respond to others' stories. And when they do this, they not only share the story, but they also co-construct knowledge, because in that way they feel that they are not alone in the process. And just like the moment I share the story at the beginning of the talk, and probably you feel related. And if I ask you to tell me that story, probably that story will be very similar to the one we read. Because in that way, we start having this identification of our commonalities in our process of teaching. So we reflect about our own stories and we integrate it into our personal self and professional self. So narrative pedagogy becomes a transformative activity in which pre-service teachers are able to change and transform themselves from who they were at the beginning of the process and how they have changed. But if we do not give them enough space for this reflection, then they feel lonely. I always say to my students that even though teaching it's a social profession, it's kind of ironic because we are surrounded by people, but it's also a very lonely profession if you do not collaborate with others and you feel that all of your um, problems, issues that you have in the classroom, like nobody understands you because you think it's the only one, you are the only one who is living these situations. So you need to share what you are living with others. If we don't do that, then teaching becomes very lonely profession, even when we are surrounded by others.
Nayeli, sorry for interrupting. We
Yes.
see what is that? Yeah, like a figure, like a square on top of your slides, so we cannot see part of your.
A ver, like there?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So why narrative pedagogy? So there are some reasons why we could use the narrative pedagogy. The first reason is first to understand how pre-service teachers develop their professional identity and illuminate these complexities of the learning to teach process. And then the reason number two is because it can help them to reflect upon their experiences that shape this professional identity throughout teacher education. And the third one is that the systematic use, because this is something that it's important. Sometimes as teacher educators, we generate these spaces for reflection, but we do not do it in a systematic way. The students, well, they reflect once or another time in another class, but we do not use this pedagogy in a systematic way. So if we use it systematically, we will able to contribute to higher levels of awareness about the difficulties of teaching, and this will make, hopefully, preventing pre-service teachers from leaving the profession at early stages. And not only the profession, but also leaving the program because they do not feel supported throughout their learning to teach process. So now we're going to move to some of the main concepts. We have already seen narrative pedagogy. Now, when we talk about professional identity, we know that this is a complex process, an ongoing process that integrates both the personal and the professional sides of becoming an English teacher or a teacher in general. And this is really important because when we think about identity, and it is when we said, like, we cannot become a teacher, and when we come home, we leave the teacher behind, and then I'm Nallely at home. Or the other way around. Like, I go to classroom and I'm a teacher Nallely, but I'm not Nallely. So we do not split ourselves, or identities do not split, but they will always come together. So who I am as a person will have an impact in my professional field, and my professional field will always come at home too, right? So I don't know if it happens to you, but sometimes when we are in daily life activities and we might say, like, es que ya me salió lo maestro, right? Like, sometimes we have some behaviors that we take from our teaching into our daily lives. So these personal and professional elements of teachers' lives, experiences, beliefs, practice are integral to one another. So we cannot split all of these elements. So because personal and professional sides are always together, then we're constantly living tensions between the images that I have about myself as teacher and the images others have about ourselves in the teaching profession. So I can't believe that teaching or being a teacher means something, but then society, but then students, but then administrators and parents believe that you have to do something else. And when these beliefs do not match with what you think you are, then tensions arrive. And we need to teach our pre-service teachers that this will happen, and that sometimes society or parents might believe that you have certain kind of obligations as teachers, which you do not believe that it's your obligation, right? So this causes tension, this causes frustration, become overwhelmed, and this is what students need to recognize. So when we discuss these things about the personal and professional self, we know that teaching is something personal. So I teach from who I am. There's no other way I can teach. My person, Nallely, will always go with me to my classroom. So this personal feature is what makes all of the teachers different. So this is what the author says. This is not a mask we put every day, like, okay, now I'm going to put my mask as a teacher, and then I go to school, and I will be just this way in the classroom. That doesn't happen. So because teaching, according to Exeter and Seth, teaching is a lot about soul searching and discovering who we are as person, and then becoming who we thinking or being able to discover who we are as teachers. So this is a difficult process. This is a very difficult identity process that our students live every day. Now, when we go to the professional self, according to Kelterman's, she identified 5 components that integrate the professional self. And this is mainly what I used as trigger questions in my class in order to develop this professional identity. So these 5 components include the self-image, who I am as a teacher, how I perceive myself. And sometimes when I teach my students in 10th semester or early semesters when they start doing their social practice, I tell them, you need to believe yourself and you need to think you are a teacher. And when you see yourself in the mirror, you're able to recognize yourself as teachers. And how can we do that if sometimes we do not behave as teachers, if we do not dress like teachers, and we do not act like teachers in the classroom? Yes. And then self-esteem, how good I am. Some of our pre-service teachers do not feel confident enough to teach because they are afraid to speak in public, because they do not feel confident about their pronunciation, their accent. They think they might be criticized. So we need to work on that self-esteem and do these discussions about it. Then task perception, what does it take to be a good teacher? We need to define what a good teacher is and what are the perceptions of our students regarding this issue. One of the ones that I love is your job motivation. Why do you teach? And it's very interesting because when our pre-service teachers start our program, I have heard a lot of different answers regarding this motivation. And sometimes they choose the profession because they really love it, because they have this vocation or passion for teaching or changing the world. But there are others that choose it because they couldn't enter to the career that they wanted in the first place. Or some others decide to choose teaching because they think it's easy, because they think they are good at English teaching or they have very good English skills. So all of these motivations affect how they perceive themselves as teachers in the other previous factors or components. And then the future perspective. How do I see myself in the future? Do I have this vision? What kind of students would I like to work with? What type of school would I like to be? And what kind of classes, if it's English or content classes. So all of these issues, they need to be developed in order to integrate them into their professional identity. So now I'm going to move to how do I implement the narrative pedagogy activities in my classroom. I teach, this specific information that I'm going to show you today, it's about a class that it's called Panorama Profesional de Ciencias del Lenguaje. This was from a previous program in our BA. Now this class, it's called Desarrollo Profesional Docente. And I use the same structure, but in this class, we have 10 semester students. So our students are in the last semester of the program, and this is an elective subject. This means that not all of the students in the program has the opportunity to take this class. So the main purpose of Desarrollo Profesional Docente or Panorama Profesional is to know a little bit more about what will be the challenges that they will face once they graduate, and to teach them that they have to work on their professional development when they finish their career, and that the importance of professional development. So I decided to do this experiment and integrate the narrative pedagogy in this class, using the bigger model of narrative pedagogy, which includes these elements about telling stories, eliciting and analyzing issues, interpretation and conceptualization, and reflection and integration of knowledge. So in order to do that, what I do is first, I introduce my students into what narrative pedagogy is. We read some papers, articles about narrative pedagogy, about teacher identity. And once they are aware of how this pedagogy works, we start working on the different activities in our class. So the first activity that we do is telling stories. In this section of the program, I ask my students, before writing their story, we rate some stories of other teachers, which I use one of the books of Universidad de Guanajuato from Martha Lenkeling about the narratives of EFL teachers. So I ask my students to read some of the chapters of these. I distribute them. I ask them to read the story. We discuss what these stories are about, how they relate to each of these stories, and we do a pair and then group discussion. Once that they have read all of these stories, I ask my students to write their own story. And in this activity of my story, I ask them to tell me about or to write about why they decide to become an English teachers, and how it has been like the main challenges that they have had by choosing this career. And it's very interesting because I asked them, like, you need to write a very creative topic and subtopics, and then they are really creative. And then what we do is that they write their stories and then they share it with the classmates in pairs, and then we have a class discussion where we make a map where everybody shares certain concepts, and we realize that we identify these commonalities of what we were discussing at the beginning. Then, after having this uh, activity of telling stories, then we go to eliciting and analyzing issues in the EFL field. In order to do this, we do an interview that Edgar was part of this activity this semester. We have an interview with an ELT expert, or students do some questions in order to know more about the profession. What are the challenges? What are the job opportunities? What can they do for professional development? And so they do this interview with an ELT expert. They uh, analyze it. They make a report of what they learned from this interview. And at this point, because they are in 10th semester, they are doing also their teaching practicum class. So I try to integrate what they do in their teaching practicum class, which I don't teach, but I try to recover that information. And they do a journal of teaching practice as part of my class. So I asked them to write 5 different journal entries. In the first one, they have to write a journal about their expectations before they start doing their teaching practice. What do they expect? What are they afraid of to when before starting the teaching practice? Then they are asked to write about a positive experience they had in the teaching practice, a negative experience, a challenging experience, and then a reflection of what they lived through their own teaching practice. So we integrate this, and while we are describing and having these discussions, we start identifying issues in language teaching. So they might say something like, well, teacher, it's because I don't know how to do classroom management, or I realize that I have students with special needs and I don't know how to teach them, or I feel that I do not feel confident about it, about teaching. So they start identifying issues through their teaching practice. And then we brainstorm, we do teams, and one of the purpose of the class is that they organize a forum of research. So we identify some topics, and then we organize a forum of professional development and experiences. So our students take what they learn from the interview, what they are living in the practice, we make groups, and then we organize this event in which our students, they have to research more about the topic, they have to do their presentation, they create an instrument to get stories from other teachers in order to integrate it with the theory, and then they present the forum in the school. Okay. And this semester, for example, we had very interesting topics. They decide the topics. I do not intervene in that. We just brainstorm. And they have some topics about, for example, the um, mental health, burnout syndrome, uh, how to integrate informal English or standardized English in the classes, and this imposter syndrome because they were not feeling really confident about being a teacher. So they do all of these, they do their presentation, and then after they do all of this process, we have this step of reflection and integration of knowledge that it's reflected into what I call a digital narrative memoir, in which my students create a small narrative book, yes, digital, and they integrate, they design a cover, they do like the prologue, the index, and they, because they are working in groups from the research forum, they create an integration of stories. So they put their story, the first activity, one of the most important journal entries that they have, and they do a reflection about what they learn about the narrative pedagogy, and they integrate it all in a book. I will show you an example in a moment. So all of this process is what we follow as the narrative pedagogy activities during the class. So when I ask our students what they thought about the narrative activities, these are some of the reasons why they prefer certain activities. For example, class discussions. One of the participants says, "There's nothing more valuable than the experience from my classmates in the work field, learning from each other and giving us advice. It has been the best thing for me." Interview with an expert, to question someone that has already gone through all the process that come after graduating, can be an eye-opening experience, and it can help us picture a broader image for our future. The journal practice, because it's important to make a reflection about our practice and most importantly, make adaptations in planning activities. And my story, because I read the experience of someone else that made me realize the trip is not easy, but if we work hard, we could do amazing things in teaching. So these are some of the reasons why they preferred some of these narrative experiences. And I also asked them about what are the benefits that they believe they can get from implementing the narrative pedagogy. So they said, for example, the feeling of comfort, the idea of I am not alone in this, or that the situation is normal for most teachers. Knowing the stories of others helps me understand why it is important, why my career is important. I compare everyone's experience as we match them or not with our own experiences, and we get a wider perspective on how to react. And it was like building experience it without having living it. So if we read all of these benefits that they said in the instrument that I applied, it's basically what the definition of narrative pedagogy is, right? This sense of building an experience without having living it is what we get from reading other stories and sharing our stories. And then I asked them, like, how do they believe that narrative pedagogy helps them to develop their professional identity, and how they have changed as person and professionals by having this implementation of narrative pedagogy activities. So some of the participants says, like, as a professional, you will never stop learning, you will never stop preparing yourself and keep improving. I learned that I have some abilities that others don't, and that I'm a good teacher, and that I have achieved things that some people would like to do. I believe that in the classroom is the opportunity to learn and make mistakes, so that when we teach, we can avoid mistakes as much as possible. So we can see how they relate. There is a change in how they perceive themselves as teachers, that they change this belief. Now they recognize the importance of professional development, that they have acquired some skills, or that they have some skills that others do not. And obviously that making mistakes is good, and that there's nothing wrong about making mistakes. Some others recognize that they have changed. I say I learned a lot during my 5 years, and that I improve in many things as technology and my knowledge of teaching. I feel proud of myself. And in regarding their personal self, it says it helped me feel the need to take it seriously, that my professional career is just about to start, and I need more commitment. So they recognize that teaching is important, that it's challenging, and that they actually need to take it seriously. Um, then one of the students who make a very long explanation of this, it says, another thing that made a huge impact on my perception of professional life during this class was all the stories that my classmates or the teachers shared, because I love sharing stories. It made me feel like I was not alone in these experiences, and that it was the feeling of empathy that motivated me. This whole semester, and especially this course, helped me learn more about myself and the journey ahead of me. It was really useful, and definitely an experience that I will never forget. So this is the impact of narrative pedagogy in our pre-service teachers, how we are able to touch that sensitive area of the personal self, but also impact the professional self, in order for our pre-service teachers to integrate both aspects in their teaching practice. So, what are some of the conclusions that I get from this information? Uh, that narrative-based activities, when integrated systematically into the different courses, support pre-service teachers' learning to teach process, and increase these spaces for reflection and discussion. Some of my pre-service teachers said, like, I teacher, we wish we could have this class before, not in 10th semester. Like, they sometimes believe that it is too late. Now we are in the last semester, and it's too late for this reflection. We wish we could have these opportunities before. This reflective practices is expected to enable pre-service teachers to confront their initial beliefs of the profession, and become more aware of the teaching complexities. So what they believe at, at the beginning about teaching, then they confront, and they have this crisis sometimes in class, but they realize and become more aware about the complexities of teaching. And it is also expected that by promoting narrative pedagogy practice, pre-service teachers can strengthen their identity, which hopefully, as I said, have a positive impact in minimizing early teacher attrition rates and sustaining teachers longer in the profession. This is a problem that we are all facing in all of the schools, I believe. Our teachers are leaving, and well, this is another research, but or teachers are leaving, and we need to know why. And we need to know if the problem is in the teacher education program, or is it in the working field, or is it in the professional identity because they didn't want in the first place to be English teachers, right? So all of these conclusions give us a, a perspective on how we can use this narrative pedagogy in our teaching practices. And obviously, I'm just applying this in teacher education, but you can use it in other levels and in other contexts if you want to know more about your students. Okay. And well, thank you very much. This is my contact information in case you want to contact me for any further questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nallely, for that great presentation. And I can see some of the students who are working with narratives, and I think they can relate to some of the information that you presented in the narratives. So we have some time for questions or any comments from the audience. Who would like to start? Okay, Lulu. Good to see you, Lulu.
Good to see you too, Emmanuel. I noticed that you wrote praxis. So what would be the difference, or is there any difference between practice and praxis?
Well, it's because in the name of the subject in our program, it's teaching praxis, like praxis de la enseñanza. That's the name that they put it in the program. So that's why I put it praxis, but it's more like teaching practicum class where the teachers or students go and do their teaching practice. Praxis, it's the name of the subject that we have in our program. Yes.
Thank you, Lulu. Milton?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. It's really nice to see you, Nallely and Edgar and everybody here. I think it's very interesting. I work with identity as well in my university. Well, we're just started this project related to identity. And you just trigger some ideas in my head because I think kind of like the same situation as your university here, that part of the reflection that is not that systematic. At least you guys have it in a way in an elective subject, and it's systematic. We don't have that, and we're trying to accommodate different things in order to come to this type of reflection with our students. And I think some of the ideas that you had here in terms of the narrative pedagogy activities will be great to implement. I'm carrying out this research related to teachers' identity, how they build the teachers' professional identity. And one of the things that I don't want to get ahead of the times because I'm barely taking a look at the transcript and everything. But it's funny to see how first semester students from English language teaching program, whenever I ask them what is a teacher, or whenever you think of the word teacher, what comes to your mind? And a lot of, like 80% of the answer has to do with, oh, it's a person who knows English and travels a lot. That traveling part, man, I was like, I never thought of it. And I was thinking that actually it may be one of the things that might be affecting the dropout rates of our students, because on the way they're discovering different things and they're getting all this different knowledge, and it's not really about traveling, it's not really about translating, at least not our program, because that's another thing that the students mentioned, translation, and that's not our thing. But yeah, I think it's I'm gonna be following up this group from first semester all the way up until 8th semester with whatever students we have. But I think implementing this tool that you have here, I think it's gonna be great. I'm going to probably suggest to the program to try to do something, because I think it is important for students to reflect on their own teaching practice and to share this with others. As much as I can, I always tell them, teaching is always a constant reflection. So if something went wrong in this class, do not feel, that, because this happens even to the most experienced teachers. Like you have your class, and then at the end, you're always like, man, I should have done this, I should have done that. But it's part of the reflection, and I think it's part of the things that our students need to, pre-service teachers need to start reflecting on, and yeah, I think it's a great tool. So thank you for that. Maybe.
Thank you, Milton. Well, believe it or not, I got that answer too. Like one of my students, well, we have these teaching and translation areas, and once my student told me like, well, I want to be a translator because I want to travel around the world. And I said like, really? Like, do you need there are like pilots or any other profession that maybe might travel around the world? But I agree. I agree that when we talk about these initial beliefs, right? Like our students have, they mainly think like, well, an English teacher is someone who teaches English, and they do not have a lot of idea when they start the profession. And in fact, my doctoral dissertation, later I can share it with you if you want. But what I did it was to see how they changed these beliefs about the profession in different moments in the program, like when they were in the first semester, then in the middle of the career, and then at the end. And even though they were not the same participants, you could see the evolution. You could see the evolution on how they describe what an English teacher is, depending on the moment they were in the program. So it's very interesting because, in fact, their professional identity changed. And I did that because I was worried about the initial beliefs. And I said, like, no, this needs to change, and I want to know how it changes. So it's very interesting, this series.
Thank you.
And then Gustavo Sebastián.
Thank you, Manuel. Hello, Dr. Nallely. Very interesting. I find this process, well, I feel identifying some aspects. I had some sort of research in my former work, and I have some questions because I found like this is a huge path that you can follow, and you can go with a longitudinal study with this. And I have two questions. I noticed, and I didn't notice, so maybe have you ever considered like their family history or the background they have? Because, for example, I have noticed like some students, they have a perception about being a teacher because they have the mother, the father, the uncle, the cousin who's a teacher per se. So do you think, or have you considered this in your study?
Well, yes, like when I did my research on professional identity, what I found is that there were three main factors that impact their pre-service teacher's decision to become an English teacher. And one of them, well, the one that we had more answers, it was teachers, inspiration. Like many of our students decided to become an English teacher because of a teacher they had. That was the first reason. The second reason was family members because they come from a family of teachers. I didn't study their family history, but when I asked them to write their stories about why they decide to become English teachers, they narrated in that way. Like when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a teacher because my father or my mother was a teacher, and I saw her and I helped her with the grading. All of these stories came out, even if I didn't ask them, because I asked them like, who motivated you to become an English teacher? So these were the two main factors. First, the teachers, good teachers and bad teachers. I will say, like some students decided because they had very bad English teachers and they wanted to be the teacher they didn't have, and some others because they had very good teachers and that they wanted to be like them. And then the family. These were like the two main factors for deciding.
Okay, and well, if time allows it, I have another question. This is a follow-up because I had the opportunity to work with egresados.
Mhm.
And while that I have like interview with them, they mentioned something that I consider is very important to consider in our like school programs, and that we do not integrate any classes or a teaching or a formation or training about how to follow like working with parents or under the administrative stress or the political issues that teachers face once like they are like having like a formal job, you know, like what should I do when father, mother arrives in my classroom angry because of this, of that. Okay, Juanito, pick on Pepita, and they started struggling, and there's like a mess. What do you think about this for a follow-up like study?
Like this is one of the things that come when we do the research forum, when sometimes I have had the students who are already working, not all of them, but the ones who work, they come out with different issues, and they explore these things with the forum by doing research. I think when we cannot teach everything in the teacher education program, but if we take those issues that we as teachers know that they will face when they graduate, we can give them opportunities to research more about it, and to present ideas about classroom management, about dealing with parents, um, and they can have some strategies. I always say, like, when you enter to the work field, there are many things that you learn once you are there that nobody teaches you, and that's why sharing stories is important, because if we as teachers have experienced certain issues like that, we can share, this might happen, and what you can do is this from my experience, but also encourage them to do research. Okay. If the time allows it, and bring the outside issues into the classroom. Mhm.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have time for a quick question. Arturo, ya no te vas.
Okay. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. That was very nice. And at the beginning of the presentation, as you were showing the story, I felt like, you mentioned certain factors that that made me thought of the profession as if it was under attack. Like we have all these things against the teacher, and don't become a teacher because you're not gonna get paid. You're gonna have to struggle with this and that. And of course, that does affect the perception and the identity that you are mentioning. But what do you think about adding another factor, a big one perhaps, with this technology innovation nowadays, and the threat that the teachers are going to disappear at one point with all this artificial intelligence taking place and replacing teachers in the future? I mean, is that going to be another factor to worry about?
Well, I believe that this is also an issue that we need to bring into discussion, right? I Once I was uh checking Facebook, and one of my students, because as I said, we have these both careers like together. Or pre-service teachers become teachers and translators in the same program. And one of them posted something like artificial intelligence, that there are like video calls where you have the assistant, the AI assistant, who is interpreting, all of these things. And he said, like, don't tell me that I'm just finishing my career and now I won't have a job. He said something like that. He posted in his Facebook. And I answer, well, now it is your time to prove that you're better than AI. So we need to teach our pre-service teachers that artificial intelligence is just that, an artificial intelligence, and that what makes us different from artificial intelligence is first, we need to be better than it. We need to provide accurate information. We need to do other things that it cannot do, but also having this idea that artificial intelligence will never replace the interactional part, will never replace the emotional engagement that you can have with students, the support, the social support that you can get. There are like some quotes that says that artificial intelligence is not coming to replace any profession, but it's going to replace people who do not know how to use it. So we need to know how to integrate artificial intelligence in our teaching in order for us not to be replaced. Because the ones who are going to be replaced are the ones who are not or who do not know how to integrate it in their profession. So I believe that that's what we need to work on with our students. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one last thing. Well, just let me get this started. Just one second, please. All righty. So I guess you can now see it, Nallely.
Yes.
Okay. So, la División de Ciencias Sociales y Humanidades, Campus Guanajuato, otorga la presente constancia a la doctora Nallely Garza Rodríguez por impartir la conferencia magistral padrísima titulada Developing Pre-Service Teachers' Professional Identity through Narrative Pedagogy in Teacher Education en el marco del 21º Seminario Permanente de Lingüística Aplicada llevado a cabo el día 24 de mayo, del año en curso. Vamos a corregir ese pequeño detallito, no te preocupes, Nallely, pero
Gracias.
te quería mostrar esta constancia que es para ti por esta maravillosa presentación que nos compartiste. Muchas gracias por aceptar y participar en el seminario y pues bueno, estaremos en contacto.
Claro que sí. Muchas gracias.
Ahora bien, todos abran su cámara porque vamos a tomarnos un screenshot del recuerdo con la doctora Nallely Garza. Déjame ponerte a ti al inicio para que salgas muy bien. Entonces todos abran su cámara, peínense, sonrían. Voy a tomar dos, ¿eh? Entonces ahí vamos. 1, 2, sonríe. Espérense, es que está entrando doctora Teresita. 1, 2, sonrían. Espérense, vamos por la segunda. 1, 2, 3. Excelente, muchas gracias, Nallely.
Gracias a todos.
Y bueno, vamos a tomar un pequeño break. Yo creo que necesitamos algunos café. Y regresamos a las 10:15 para continuar con las sesiones de presentaciones de estudiantes de posgrado. Muchas gracias.